An alien mother's last hope, she left her baby on a human's doorstep. Dr. Marcus Reed had always believed that the most profound moments in life arrived without warning, like lightning splitting a calm sky. As he stood in his modest apartment, overlooking the industrial district of New Geneva, watching snow spiral past his window, he had no idea that tonight would prove that theory correct. The blizzard had been raging for 3 days, transforming the usually bustling streets into empty corridors of white. Marcus had grown accustomed to solitude since returning from his deployment as a medic during the intergalactic conflict. His small practice treating both human and alien refugees barely paid the bills, but it gave his life purpose after years of witnessing too much suffering. The sharp rap at his door made him freeze. 3 deliberate knocks, urgent, yet somehow desperate. In his neighborhood, unexpected visitors usually meant trouble. Marcus approached cautiously, his medical training keeping him alert. Through the peephole, he saw nothing but swirling snow. When he opened the door, his breath caught. There, huddled against the storm, stood a figure wrapped in tattered thermal blankets. But it wasn't the woman who stopped his heart. It was the small bundle she cradled against her chest. Golden eyes peered up at him from within the fabric, belonging to an infant whose skin held the distinctive azure tint of the Zephyrian people. "Please," the woman whispered, her voice carrying the melodic accent of her homeworld. "She needs warmth." Marcus didn't hesitate. "Come inside, both of you." As they stepped into his apartment, Marcus got his first clear look at the woman. Even exhausted and half-frozen, she possessed an ethereal beauty that spoke of ancient civilizations and distant stars. Her name, she told him, was Lyra Nightwhisper, and the child was her daughter, Nova. "How long have you been out there?" Marcus asked, quickly preparing hot soup and gathering blankets. 4 days, Lyra admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "The shelters, they said they had no room." Marcus's jaw tightened. He'd heard the stories, seen the discrimination firsthand. The war had ended 5 years ago, but prejudice against the Zephyrian refugees remained strong. Many humans still saw them as the enemy, despite the fact that the Zephyrians had lost their homeworld in the conflict. As Lyra fed Nova, Marcus found himself studying them both. There was something about the way Lyra moved, the careful precision of her actions, that suggested military training. She noticed his observation and met his gaze directly. "I was a navigation officer," she said quietly. "Before the evacuation, I was a combat medic," Marcus replied. "I served on the relief ships after Zephyr Prime fell. Something passed between them, an understanding born of shared trauma and loss. They had been on opposite sides of a war that neither had truly wanted, and now they sat in his kitchen, bound together by circumstance and a sleeping child." "Why did you help us?" Lyra asked. Marcus looked at Nova, who had fallen asleep against her mother's chest, tiny fingers curled around a fold of blanket. "Maybe because I've seen too much hatred," he said finally. "Maybe because kindness is the only thing that makes sense anymore." Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside, something warmer than heated air began to bloom between a human doctor and an alien refugee who had knocked on his door seeking shelter. The morning light filtered through Marcus's apartment windows, casting everything in a soft golden glow that seemed to transform the modest space into something almost sacred. Lyra sat at his small kitchen table, cradling a cup of earth coffee, her first taste of the bitter beverage that had become Marcus's daily ritual. "It's intense," she said, making a face that caused Marcus to chuckle. "It grows on you," he assured her, settling into the chair across from her. Nova slept peacefully in a makeshift crib Marcus had fashioned from cushions and blankets, her small chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm. Over the past week, Marcus had watched Lyra, slowly emerge from the defensive shell that survival had forced her to build. She was brilliant. He learned this when she helped him organize his medical supplies with a systematic efficiency that spoke of advanced training. She was also gentle, singing Nova to sleep each night with hauntingly beautiful lullabies in her native tongue. But it was the moments between when she thought he wasn't looking that revealed the depth of her strength. The way she would pause in whatever task she was performing and simply breathe, as if reminding herself that she was safe. The careful way she moved through his space, never presuming, always asking permission. "Tell me about Zephyr Prime," Marcus said one evening as they sat together on his couch, Nova playing with a set of colourful blocks he'd bought at the local market. Lyra's expression grew distant. "It was beautiful," she said softly. "Our cities were built into the sides of crystal formations that caught the light of our triple suns. The music, everything on my world was musical, even our technology hummed in harmony." "I'm sorry," Marcus said. "I saw the aftermath, but I can't imagine what it was like to lose everything." Lyra nodded, then surprised him by reaching for his hand. Her fingers were warm, slightly longer than human fingers, with a delicate strength that spoke of artistic as well as practical pursuits. "You've given us more than shelter," she said. "You've given us hope." As the days passed, their conversations deepened. Marcus learned that Lyra had been a rising star in the Zephyrian space fleet, known for her ability to chart courses through the most dangerous regions of space. She had been off-world when the evacuation began, had spent months trying to find survivors, had eventually made her way to Earth with nothing but the clothes on her back, and a pregnancy that represented both hope and terror in equal measure. "Nova's father?" Marcus asked one evening, then immediately regretted the question when he saw Lyra's expression tighten. "He died in the evacuation," she said simply. "A good man, but we were not bonded in the way your people understand marriage. Among my kind, children are gifts to the community. Love comes in many forms." Marcus found himself thinking about that conversation long into the night. He was beginning to understand that his feelings for Lyra went far beyond simple compassion or attraction. When she laughed at something Nova did, when she helped him treat a patient who stumbled to his door seeking medical attention, when she stood at his window in the morning light, looking out at the city they might someday call home. Together, in those moments, Marcus felt something he'd thought the war had burned out of him. "I have a confession," Lyra told him one night as they stood on his small balcony, watching the city lights twinkle below. Nova was asleep inside, and the air between them hummed with unspoken possibilities. "What's that?" Marcus asked. "I knocked on 12 doors before yours," she said. 12 families, 12 chances for help. You were the only one who opened the door." Marcus turned to face her fully. "I'm glad I was home." Lyra smiled, and in that smile Marcus saw not just gratitude, but something that made his heart race with possibility. When she stepped closer, when her hand found his cheek, when she whispered his name like a prayer, Marcus knew that some storms brought destruction, but others brought exactly what you needed most. The tranquility they had built over 3 months shattered with 3 sharp knocks on Marcus's door. Unlike the desperate plea that had brought Lyra to him, these knocks carried authority and threat in equal measure. Marcus peered through the peephole and felt his blood turn cold. 2 men in the charcoal uniforms of the Department of Alien Affairs stood in his hallway, their expressions hard and professional. Behind them lurked a third figure, someone Marcus recognized with a sinking heart. Detective James Crowley, a former military police officer who had made a career of hunting down illegals after the war. "Dr. Reed," the lead officer said when Marcus opened the door just wide enough to speak through. "We're conducting a routine check of this building. Mind if we come in?" "Actually, I do mind," Marcus replied evenly. Do you have a warrant? Crowley stepped forward, his scarred face twisting into what might have been a smile. We don't need a warrant for a wellness check, Doc. We've had reports of unusual activity in this building. Lights on at odd hours, strange sounds. You know how it is. Good citizens looking out for the community. Marcus's training kicked in. Never show fear, never give them an opening. I'm a doctor. I keep unusual hours because people get sick at unusual times. As for strange sounds, my upstairs neighbor has a baby. They cry sometimes. While he spoke, Marcus caught a glimpse of movement in his peripheral vision. Lyra had appeared in the hallway leading to the bedrooms, Nova in her arms. She pressed herself against the wall, out of sight of the door, but Marcus could see the terror in her golden eyes. Look, Dr. Reed, the second officer said, his tone attempting diplomacy. We're not trying to cause trouble, but if you're harboring an unregistered alien, it's better for everyone if you cooperate now. I'm not harboring anyone, Marcus lied smoothly. But I am treating several patients this evening, so unless you have that warrant, Crowley's eyes narrowed. We'll be back, Doc. Count on it. After they left, Marcus locked the door and engaged every security measure he could think of. Lyra emerged from the hallway, her face pale but determined. How long do we have? She asked. Not long, Marcus admitted. They're building a case. Next time they'll have papers. That night, they made plans. Marcus had contacts in the Underground Railroad that helped alien refugees reach safer territories. Dr. Sarah Chen, a colleague from his military days, ran a clinic in the agricultural colonies where humans and aliens worked side by side without the poisonous politics of the urban centers. You don't have to come with us, Lyra told him as they packed the essentials into a single backpack. You've done enough. Marcus stopped what he was doing and turned to face her. Do you want me to come? The question hung between them, heavy with implications. If he went with them, there would be no coming back to his old life. His practice, his apartment, the careful routine he'd built, all of it would be gone. Yes, Lyra whispered, but I can't ask you to sacrifice everything for us. Marcus cupped her face in his hands, marveling at the warmth of her skin, the way her golden eyes seemed to hold starlight. You're not asking. I'm choosing. They left. That night, slipping through the back alleys, Marcus knew like a map of his own heart. Lyra moved with the fluid grace of someone trained in stealth operations. Nova secured against her chest, in a carrier that allowed her hands to remain free. At the transport station, they encountered their first real test. The security checkpoint was manned by automated scanners that could detect alien biometrics. Marcus's heart pounded as they approached, but Lyra had prepared for this moment. From her bag, she produced a small device that looked like a jewelry pin. Biometric scrambler, she explained quietly. Military grade. It should mask my readings long enough to get through. As they passed through the checkpoint, Marcus held his breath. The scanner beeped once, twice, then flashed green. They were through. On the transport heading toward the colonies, with Nova sleeping peacefully between them and the city lights. Fading behind them, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years, complete certainty about his path forward. No regrets? Lyra asked, as if reading his thoughts. Marcus looked at her, at the woman who had stumbled into his life during a snowstorm and changed everything. Only that it took me this long to realize what home actually means. The agricultural colony of verdant hope stretched across rolling hills under a sky painted in shades of amber and rose. Marcus stood at the edge of their new home, a modest cabin overlooking fields where humans and Zephyrians worked side by side, their different forms moving in harmony under the alien sunset. It had been 4 months since their escape from New. Geneva and Marcus barely recognized the people they had become. Lyra's laughter came easier now. Her smiles were unguarded, and Nova had grown into a curious, babbling infant who reached for everything with fearless joy. The medical center is almost ready, Dr. Sarah Chen announced as she joined Marcus on the porch. Sarah had welcomed them with open arms, understanding instinctively what Marcus had found in Lyra and Nova. The Colonial Council approved your application. Dr. Marcus Reed and Dr. Lyra Night Whisper, joint directors of the Verdant Hope Medical Facility. Marcus smiled at the sound of their names linked together. During their journey, he had discovered that Lyra possessed advanced medical knowledge, xenobiology specifically, with a specialization in treating injuries that occurred during space travel. Her skills complemented his perfectly. Dr. Night Whisper, Lyra said, stepping onto the porch with Nova in her arms. I like the sound of that. She had been taking accelerated courses to earn her Earth medical certification, studying with an intensity that amazed Marcus. But it was in the evenings, when she would read to Nova in both English and Zephyrian, that Marcus found himself falling deeper in love with her mind, her dedication, her fierce protection of the future she was building for her daughter. There's something else, Sarah continued, her expression growing serious. The colonial government is forming a new treaty with the Zephyrian Provisional Council. They want medical professionals who can serve as cultural liaisons. Marcus looked at Lyra, seeing the spark of possibility in her golden eyes. This was what they had been working toward. Not just a place to hide, but a place to contribute, to build something meaningful together. That evening, as they walked through the colony's main square, Marcus was struck by the diversity around them. Zephyrian children played alongside human children, their different laughter creating a symphony of joy. Markets sold goods from a dozen different worlds, and the air hummed with multiple languages, creating a new form of music. It's like the old stories my grandmother used to tell, Lyra said, bouncing Nova gently as they walked. About the time before the wars, when the galaxy was connected by trade and friendship instead of fear. Maybe that time is coming again, Marcus suggested. They stopped at a small park where a fountain sparkled under the evening stars. Nova reached toward the water, gurgling with delight at the way the light danced across the surface. Marcus, Lyra said softly, her voice carrying a weight that made him turn to face her fully. There's something I need to tell you. His heart skipped, reading the seriousness in her expression. Among my people, there's a ceremony, she continued, a bonding ritual that joins two lives together. It's not like human marriage, it's deeper. It connects not just the present, but all the possibilities of the future. Marcus felt his breath catch. Are you? I'm asking if you would consider it, Lyra said, her cheeks flushing with a blue undertone that he had learned indicated strong emotion. Not just for me, but for Nova, for the life we're building together. Marcus looked at Nova, who had reached up to grab a strand of Lyra's dark hair, her golden eyes bright with innocent happiness. Then he looked at Lyra, at the woman who had transformed his entire understanding of what love could be. Yes, he said simply, yes to all of it. As they kissed under the alien stars, with Nova laughing between them and the sounds of their new community settling into evening around them, Marcus realized that some storms didn't just bring unexpected gifts. They brought the courage to claim the life you never knew you wanted. 1 year later, Marcus stood at the altar in Verdant Hope's community center, his hands surprisingly steady despite the magnitude of the moment. The ceremony space had been decorated with both earth flowers and crystalline Zephyrian singing stones that hummed softly in harmony, creating music that seemed to bridge two worlds. Lyra approached down the aisle, and Marcus felt his breath catch just as it had that first night she'd knocked on his door. She wore a gown that flowed like liquid starlight, traditional Zephyrian design modified with earth elements, a perfect symbol of the life they were creating together. Nova toddled beside her mother, her small hands gripping Lyra's dress, her golden eyes wide with wonder at the celebration around her. The officiant was Elder Kess, one of the oldest Zephyrian refugees in the colony, whose voice carried the weight of ancient traditions. Beside him stood Pastor Martinez from the human settlement, representing the blending of customs that had become the hallmark of their community. Love, Elder Kess began, his words translated simultaneously for both populations, is the force that connects all living things across the vastness of space. It recognizes no boundaries of species, no limitations of world or culture. Marcus looked out at the gathered crowd, their friends, colleagues, and chosen family from across the galaxy. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the front row, tears of joy streaming down her face. Behind her, the mix of human and Zephyrian faces created a tapestry of acceptance and hope that would have been impossible just a few years ago. Marcus Reed, Elder Kess continued, do you pledge to journey alongside Lyra Nightwhisper through all the passages of life, to share in her joys and sorrows, to protect and nurture the family you have chosen together? I do, Marcus said, his voice carrying across the hushed crowd. I pledge my heart, my future, and my love, not just to Lyra, but to Nova, and to the family we'll continue to build together. When it came time for the traditional Zephyrian bonding ritual, Lyra took his hands and pressed their palms together. Marcus felt a warm tingle pass between them, not supernatural, but the simple recognition of two people choosing to intertwine their destinies. In my culture, Lyra told the assembled crowd, we believe that love multiplies rather than divides. When Marcus opened his door to us that night, he didn't just save our lives. He showed us that home isn't a place. Home is the people who choose to walk beside you, no matter how difficult the path. After the ceremony, as evening settled over, the colony and the celebration moved to the community gardens. Marcus found himself on a hill overlooking their new world. Lyra joined him, Nova sleeping contentedly in her arms. Any regrets? She asked, echoing the question from their journey months ago. Marcus looked down at the lights of verdant hope twinkling below them, at the mixed families enjoying the festival, at the medical center where they worked side by side, healing people from across the galaxy. Most importantly, he looked at his wife and daughter, words that still filled him with wonder every time he thought them. Only one, he said, pulling them both closer. Lyra raised an eyebrow in question. I regret that it took a snowstorm, and the worst night of your life to bring you to my door, Marcus said softly. I wish our story could have begun with joy instead of desperation. Lyra leaned against him, her warmth solid and real against his side. But then it wouldn't be our story, she pointed out. It wouldn't have taught us how strong love can be when it's chosen freely, in spite of everything trying to tear it apart. As if summoned by their conversation, Nova stirred in her mother's arms and opened her golden eyes. She looked up at Marcus and reached out with one small hand, making the soft cooing sound that had become his favorite music in all the galaxy. Dada, she said clearly, her first real word. Marcus felt tears spring to his eyes as he gently took her little hand. That's right, sweetheart, I'm your daddy and I always will be. Above them, the two moons of verdant hope rose into the star-filled sky, casting silver light over the family that had been forged in storm and snow, tested by fear and prejudice, and finally brought to rest in a place where love was allowed to flourish without boundaries. In the distance, the singing stones continued their harmony, and Marcus realized that their music would continue long after he and Lyra were gone. A song of hope that would inspire other souls to open their doors. When strangers knocked, seeking shelter from their own storms,